Hello and welcome to Jockeys, the podcast. I'm Adam McNamara, and this is the racing podcast where we strip away the guarded versions of jockeys that you see every day on TV, giving them the platform to tell us what they really think. We talk about their regrets and aspirations, and we have a couple of laughs along the way as well.
In this episode, Lily Pinchin.
So we jumped to the lorry, went to go and get the peacock. Releasing this documentary has made me so much stronger. I've had some really tough days, especially with having ADHD, and I've never been like, oh, I'm a girl in racing. I think we're all just jockeys. But why can't I post a picture of me, on holiday in a bikini? But it's always been frowned upon, and I think it's just a bit of a stigma when I'm ready to quit riding, which hopefully isn't anytime soon because I don't have any plans to do that. Hopefully I can set up my own business. Trying to, find somebody that clicks and works and can understand that is really tricky, and I'm working on it.
You're working on it. Excellent.
I'm working on
it. Good to hear. Lily, welcome to Jockeys, the podcast. Really good to get you on. I want to start like I normally do with outside of racing, so I know there's plenty that you do outside the saddle. But for people who don't know you that well or haven't seen the documentary yet, and we come on to the documentary in a little while, can you give us a flavour of what you're doing on a typical day off outside the saddle, outside of racing?
Yeah, so a typical day off for me outside of the saddle would be very, very relaxed. I wouldn't really be one to, I say relax actually, not really relaxed. I'd say probably for other people it would be like a day's work. I mean, I'm very out there. I've got lots of animals which I spend a lot of time with. So I'd say I wouldn't really have a day off, but I would be doing something that I really enjoy.
Tell me about the animals specifically, because you've got basically a whole farm going on over there, haven't you? So how many animals have you got and what kinds have you got?
So I have chickens, ducks, horses. I have a peacock, which I rescued not so long ago. So all different types of birds, and obviously horses are a massive part of my life. My two retired racehorses and my two dogs.
Tell me how you rescue a peacock. How did that come about?
Oh, so Mum's a bit of a Facebook marketplace hunter, and she was on Facebook, and somebody had put like an advert up for like a free peacock, and they was running around the village, which is about 5 miles from us. So Mum was like, oh, we'll go get it. So we jumped to the lorry, went to go and get the peacock. Nobody could catch it, and its friend had actually got run over up the road, so it was all on its own. And it was jumping from like roof to roof, and we actually caught it, but we caught it with dog food. They like dog biscuits.
Right.
So now
Percy,
they love dog biscuits. So Percy and peanuts. So Percy now has a forever home here.
So how much time, if you've got a day off, how much time are you out spending with chickens and peacocks and stuff like that?
I'd say majority of the day, really. On a day off, I like to go and see my friends, and my friends come over, or I'll go and ride my horses, or I'll just be out feeding them mealworms and peanuts, whatever they like. It's weird, but yeah, I'd be just doing stuff around the house and whatnot, and I suppose I just enjoy having the chickens about.
So is that like your kind of, I suppose, like your version of therapy, just like having time with the chickens and peacocks and feeding them mealworms and stuff like that? Is that just like a really relaxing space for you or something?
Yeah, like some people love going shopping, and like that's their I suppose you call it retail therapy, but like something that would make me happy would be very minimal. Like I'm not really a big baller. The simple things in life make me happy.
And tell me about the two dogs then as well, because you've got two Jack Russells, I think, haven't you?
Yeah.
And I've taken part ownership of my girlfriend's Jack Russell, and I absolutely love him. And I could talk about dogs all day, but I'm assuming again, dogs to, as they are to most people, are kind of like a form of therapy and like companionship.
Yeah, my two dogs are like my children. Are like best friends. They come everywhere with me. They sleep with me. They go everywhere. Rufus actually comes racing with me when there's not very many people in the weighing room, so it's good girls because there's not many girls rides. So it's quite nice to have him around. But yeah, my dogs are. I'm very, very fond of them, and they are a massive, massive part of my life.
And talk to me a little bit about the horse as well, because you said you've got your own horses. Um, for me, that'd be like, it seems a bit strange because I always felt like, as much as I love horses, and obviously I was a jockey for a long time, so like you have to love horses to be a jockey, and I love being around them, stuff like that. I felt like if I was riding out in the morning, say riding 4 or 5 lots, and then go and race and have 4 or 5 rides, I wouldn't then want to come home and see another horse. So I think that's quite a unique thing for jockey. I think a lot of jockeys kind of like want their little bit of downtime from the horses to get away from it. But like your downtime is more horses. So like explain that one to me. It doesn't really, yeah, it doesn't really fit with my own sort of personal feeling about horses, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose I've always had. I was very lucky. I've always had ponies and horses from a young age, so they're always a big part of our lives. I really in the winter I wouldn't really ride Joey as much as I do in the summer. And obviously the other one, Gary, I wouldn't really ride them in the winter. I'd more so ride them in the summer. Like I like hacking them out to the pub and like going for dinner at the pub, or taking them cross country schooling, or going out for a hack. Or I really enjoy them, and obviously Joey is a massive part of my life. He was my favorite ever horse in training when I was working full time, like an apprenticeship. So, and I always said that I would have him, and I've never really had a connection with a horse like Joey. So that's probably why, I have him, I suppose.
It's fair to say that like your life is very much centered around animals. And I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I'd assume, obviously, we saw the documentary. I saw the documentary, and I think everybody should watch it. A Race in Mind about you, and it's now on Amazon Prime, which is a massive deal as well, which is really, really cool. But a big focus of that documentary was your ADHD. So, is that like is the tie into animals? Is that helping the ADHD? Is that what you think is the big factor for you?
Yeah, I'd say if I didn't have the horses, the dogs, all that kind of stuff, I'd find it really tricky. Like last year, I was busy like racing, and I was actually living away from home a couple of nights a week, and I actually did, I missed home a lot, and I missed having being around the animals and all that sort of stuff. So like I suppose, yeah, it is a big thing to me, and to be at home, surrounded by the people that I love and the animals and stuff is possibly like a massive help with my ADHD.
Mm. Let's talk about the ADHD in the documentary specifically then, because, like I said, A Race in Mind's on Amazon Prime, as it rightfully should, so I thought it was really, really interesting. But it struck me kind of like immediately through the first episode. Obviously, you were followed really closely by a friend, Louis Gill, and followed you for a sustained period of time, and you made this documentary together, sort of independently. But it struck me really early on that it was quite. I was surprised how behind the scenes it was, and kind of how raw and emotional it was. Did it feel really difficult for you to put that out there, to kind of like show that to the world when it wasn't well known at all, really, if at all? Was that Did that feel like a massive step for you to put that out there for everyone to see?
Yeah, it was really. It's a funny story, really, because we were going to do a documentary on me riding my claim out, but then we came to the conclusion that Louis rang me and said, "Lily, I think I've got a really good idea. Why don't we do a documentary about you riding your claim out having ADHD?" So I was like, right, okay, no, absolutely not, because I was just worried about the backlash of what would come from it. Um, and he was like, "I think it's a really good idea." So I said no, and then I rang him back, I think, a couple of hours later, and I just said, because I thought about it, and I thought that actually everything that I went through with my ADHD and my mental health, if I could show somebody really young coming through, or anybody in any walk of life, how I've managed it and achieved what I've been able to achieve, which I've been extremely lucky to, and it can help them, then why not?
Mm. So that must have been a really difficult decision. And like we said, to kind of bare yourself to the world, that must have a bit of a burden on you, surely.
Yeah, it was. Do you know what? I think about it now, and I think, great, that I've done it, but it doesn't really stop me in my life. I think that if anything, releasing this documentary has made me so much like stronger, and just be like, I am who I am, and that's me. So I don't, it hasn't made put any pressure on me at all. Um, the feedback that I've had has been unbelievable. So I'm so grateful for that. Well, we never thought it was ever going to hit Amazon Prime, and when it did, it was possibly like, it was a dream come true. It was a massive shock, and it's something that hopefully will help a lot of people.
Can you give me the specifics of like the emotion, the feeling you got when you saw it on Amazon Prime? How did that make you feel?
I think I was just like shocked because Louis knew that it was going on Amazon Prime, and I asked him about it because it was really stressful, like trying to do everything, because it was always so in the unknown. Like, we had no idea like how it was going to even, if it was going to even get on any sort of like, thing, even YouTube. So I'd say when it was on Amazon Prime, my initial reaction was like, oh my God. I was always hoping that it would kind of like get to something like that. I never thought I'd ever see myself on a, I suppose, like a documentary or like movie kind of thing. I never thought that that would ever come of it. I thought it may just like sort of get onto some like channel, but I didn't think it picked TV. We might have got
And
on
tell
Pick
me,
TV. We're not Amazon Prime, but we managed to get Amazon Prime.
since it's been on Amazon Prime, has there been? I'd assume there's been a lot more feedback when you're more people watching it, but is there any potential that we see a second Lily Pinchin documentary? Is there any like? Is there anything else in the works?
Ooh, it'd be really cool to do another documentary. I think I've got an idea for what I could do next. So there is definitely potential for it, 100%. But at the same time, it's trying to find the backing for something big like that. It's a massive, responsibility. You have to get like, I think the Champions Full Gallop one, they've got like 50 plus people behind the scenes, just filming, not editors. So I'd like to think we could, but we'd probably need a bit of support, I'd say.
And then tell me, are you able to tell us what your idea is for the next one, or are you going to keep that top secret?
I think, well, my idea could be completely different to what I could say this to Lou, and he'd be like, absolutely not, Lily, that's stupid. But like he does majority of the time. But I reckon that, say, I'd love to do a documentary of me finishing my career, because I
Mm.
think nobody really sees that from, like, I suppose you see it like jockeys go, oh, I've retired. But I don't think anybody sees what it's actually like for a jockey to retire, or for someone with ADHD, which is a sportswoman or a sportsman who retires. So something like that. But Louis would probably say completely different and do something else. But I don't know. It would be quite cool to do an episode 2, but I'd say that's something that I'd have to. Well, Louis has said it, but it's something that he actually hasn't said any ideas.
I personally would love to see that. Obviously, because from my own perspective, like I retired at 25, and my sort of transition through wasn't. It might have kind of looked seamless from the outside because I went straight from like retirement into a job, but it certainly didn't feel that way for me. And the 2 years kind of building up to kind of denying the fact that I was retiring was obviously really difficult. But I'd love to see, like you said, more of that kind of perspective on jockeys retiring, and specifically you with dealing with ADHD on top of that. I think that'd be really, really interesting. So I think it worked.
So like, I've already started to plan a few things out. I'm going to set my own business up, So when I'm ready to quit riding, which hopefully isn't anytime soon because I don't have any plans to do that, hopefully I can set up my own business and go from there. Should be exciting.
I've got kind of two follow-up questions for that because I'm really interested in it. First is, does the like documentary experience, does it feel quite invasive and like quite personal? Like, do you not find that difficult to have kind of cameras following you around your every move?
I think it was easy for me doing it because I trust Louis so much and he's one of my like bestest friends. So having him film me was never really an issue. And I think I did a lot of like media training, not for the documentary, but when I was younger as like a conditional and obviously being behind the camera and stuff like that. I mean, I've never been afraid of it. So I think I was okay with it, but I can understand from other people's point of view, it is quite a big thing to do because it's like, especially in the documentary, there was a lot of like behind the scenes. So it, I suppose I was a bit worried about it, but I think now I just like wing it.
And I think my second question then is, you've talked about sort of setting up a business when you retire, and you've talked about retirement. It seems to me, and I think luckily it's changing, but like historically, jockeys weren't allowed to talk about what I'm going to do when I retire, or this is my plan when I finish riding, because it was seen like you have to focus 110% and be really tunnel vision on your career. Otherwise, you're not all in and it's not good enough. So, do you think that has changed? And do you think that gives you like something extra to your riding career? Does it help your riding career to be thinking about what you're going to be doing when you finish?
Yeah, I think I didn't. I've always wanted to do this business idea, but I've never really, I never really thought of like retirement as it a way out of retirement. I think it was just like me saying it is like a plan. So like my next step in life, I think you have to have that. I've always been one to make sure that I've got things in order for when like I'm quiet or I'm not busy. So for example, my horses, my chickens and stuff. So when I'm not busy racing, I'm always doing something. Otherwise, I find sometimes you can just sit and dwell on things. So I think what I'm doing now is just slowly growing it. Obviously, I'm very focused on my career, and I wouldn't let anything get in the way of that. But I think I can just slowly build this, and then when I retire, whenever I do, then I'll hopefully fall into that, and that'll keep me going, I'd say.
Yeah, you have more of like a seamless transition.
Yeah, I've always got like really like exciting ideas in my head, which I'd tell my mum, and she'd be like, "That's stupid. You shouldn't do that." But she thinks this one's a good one. So, and she said she would help me, so that's even better.
Yeah, good. There was another part of the documentary I want to talk to you about, and I don't think it's really, let's say, ADHD specific, but I think quite like jockey specific. One that I really felt when I watched it, and it was, I think, in episode 2, um, where you'd been beaten on one that I think you fancied, and
God,
then
yeah.
you had to walk back out to the parade ring and get on another one. And I really loved it because I think it was it really showed what it actually feels like to
Mm.
get beat on one, the disappointment, the emotions that you go through to have to get back out and pick yourself up and then ride a winner on the next one. That roller coaster, I think that was a really good example of what a jockey's typical day is like.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some. Obviously, everyone has tough days, but I've had some really tough days, especially with having ADHD and processing things differently to what I'd say your average person would. But I think the way I look at life is I'm just like, right, you just got to get up and get on with it. I think there's a saying that I say in it, and I always say it, and I say, you can't cry over spilt milk. And I think that's how I just sort of channel that. But I thought it was really good to show that because that is the reality of riding. Unfortunately, things do go tits up, and you just have to carry on. There's been, I remember walking out into the paddock thinking, oh my God, I probably sounded a bit like a bit of a spoiled brat, but I think that instead of people like hiding it, I was actually just showing it like how I felt, because I could have just been like, oh, walked out to the paddock and been like, oh yeah, that was a bit annoying. But like for me, I was gutted because I really, like any jockey wants to win, but I was just gutted because I was just like, oh, that's really annoying. I thought the horse was going to win, but that's life. And then just lucky enough that I'm quite good at blanking stuff out of my head. So I just blanked it out of my head, even though I did look furious. I did. But like I say in my documentary, when I'm on a horse, I completely like just zone out. Like nothing matters to me. Like I just really like enjoy riding horses.
I find that really interesting. I want to know more about that, because I felt like when I rode, the only time it really flicked in my head similar to that was if I was under a lot of pressure. Like, funnily enough, if I was going to like ride a favourite at Wolverhampton, I didn't seem to lock in as much. But if I was going to, say, I rode a favourite Royal Ascot once, I felt so much more like in line and concentrated. And like other athletes talk about that sort of being in the flow and in the zone. But it sounds to me a little bit like that happens to you just like anytime you get on a horse. And it sounds almost like a little bit like a superpower to have. Because I wish I had that every time I rode, but it was only like when I was really under pressure that I seemed to focus and zone in. But like I said, to have that every time you ride sounds like a really positive thing.
Yeah, I think for me personally, as I've like as I've ridden more and obviously turned pro and all that sort of stuff, I've kind of realized that actually, it is what it is. Like you can't change it. If something goes wrong, yes, you give it a bad ride, or the horse just, wasn't on a going day or something like that. I think you have to brush it aside, because if you dwell on it, it'll absolutely eat you up. And I feel as though in this game, if you let things get to you, it will destroy you. But if you learn to not let them get to you, but do sort of allow it a little bit, everything goes much better. And that is how I've sort of come to terms with it.
So is it like trying to find a balance between still feeling the emotion and allowing yourself to feel it, but being able to kind of brush off at the right time?
Yeah, I've always come home and not talked about horses or racing. Like I'd talk about it at the races and talk about it like on the way home if I'm talking to somebody on the phone. But as soon as I come home, that's my time to relax. Like I don't know, I wouldn't be sat like dwelling on things. If I needed to look at a replay or look at something or just check something, I would. But I wouldn't, if I was coming home to my family and stuff, they're pretty good, to be honest. They'd be like, oh, all right, good day, yeah, good day. Just like being able to have normal, like I suppose like a normal atmosphere is great. Like my family aren't in racing, so it's so nice because I can come home and just be like, how was how was the garage? How was working at the garage? So my dad obviously runs his own business in cars, and I don't know, ask something stupid like that. Like it would, I love that.
Mm. Helps you put things in perspective a bit, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. You have to have that. I think you have to have that like that balance with this job. Otherwise, it will just eat you alive.
Anybody can admit we're still a long way away from where we need to be in terms of female jockeys. But I think it's really encouraging to see, obviously, Holly Doyle, Rachel Blackmore more recently, and then before them you had sort of Katie Walsh and the likes of those blazing the way. But do you feel like, how do I phrase it? Do you feel like a female jockey, if that makes sense, or do you feel like you're able to put that to one side and just be a jockey rather than a female jockey?
I've never been like, oh, it's because I'm a girl, or I've never ever been like that, because I remember back in Pony Club, we'd have like boys on our teams and stuff, and like show jumping and eventing. Like it was never really a thing. So I've never been like, oh, I'm a girl in racing. Like You know, I think we're all just jockeys. I think we all ride very uniquely. We all have our own different ways, and I think to me that I don't have an opinion on being a boy or a girl at all.
I think what you said there is you ride uniquely. I think that's the important bit for me because I've always argued that like being a jockey isn't about strength or it's not about being stronger than one beside you. Obviously, there are some jockeys who their main asset is their strength, but I've always used the example of like Joe Fanning, who's winning most jockey currently riding in the UK. And if you watch him ride, he literally just like tickles their neck and horses run for him. So I think it's like it's a knack thing, isn't it? It's getting a horse to run for you. So you don't need to be lifting 100 kilos in the gym. It's if you got that unique thing, and I think that's why female jockeys and male jockeys can compete on equal terms, and female jockeys can beat them, as you guys have proven day in day out. Is because it's it's getting inside a horse's brain. It's not the physical aspect. Obviously, there's a physical aspect too, but that's not the whole story. You've got to get inside a horse's brain and get them to run for you.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. You know, a great example, Rachel Blackmore. I mean, there's some fantastic jockeys out there. Charlie Deutsch, great jockey, like the way he rides. Like he rides completely different to what Sean Bowen would, how he would ride. So I think the unique riding skills are great to have, and that's why like Bryony wouldn't ride the same way as I ride, and I think, or Rachel wouldn't ride the same way as I ride. So I think having that, it's not because it's a girl or a boy. It's I think it's the way you ride.
Talking of sort of Charlie Longsden and stuff, I've had a couple of conversations with jockeys about the sort of jockey trainer relationship. Again, I think that's something that's evolved massively over time, even from when I started, because it used to be, I think, a sort of a master servant sort of relationship, which I don't think fits in modern culture. But do you feel like how do you feel like your relationships with trainers are now? Do you feel like you're able to have friendly relationships? Are there some trainers that you've got to be a little bit more, I don't want to say cautious, but a bit more reserved around? Or some that you can be a bit more yourself?
Yeah, I'd say I fit in really well at Charlie's. Like I love working there. It's all a very big team effort. So, and I just fit in really well there. Like Tony Carroll's as well. I go and ride out there. I ride a few horses over jumps. I love going there because I can just be myself, which I can at Charlie's as well. But I'd say, yeah, it's good to have a really good relationship with a trainer. Like Richard Hobson was a massive part of my career when I broke my back, and he helped me like immensely. So I think having a good relationship with the trainer is really important, especially with owners as well, I think.
Mm. So tell me about the owners then. Is there, obviously there's different types of owners, but is there owners that you feel like you get on better with than others, or do you feel like you can adapt yourself? So if you're walking out to parade ring and it's a syndicate versus you're walking out to parade ring and it's a big wealthy owner, do you adapt and change, or do you kind of give them both the same approach?
I suppose if you're riding for a syndicate, you have to talk to everyone
Mm.
that is stood there. But I think with an owner, you can, with one or two people, then it's a little bit easier, I suppose. With a syndicate, you sort of have to bring everyone together. But with a one-to-one owner, I don't think it's any different. I don't change the way I am anyway.
Mm.
I wouldn't. I
And do
just
you,
do what I think's right.
do you think I've said this before, but I felt like in hindsight and reflection, when I spoke to owners, sometimes I could be quite negative when I came back in, like because maybe the emotion from the loss had hit me a bit too much, and I'd just have a bit of a face like a slapped arse, for want of a better word. And I think that probably didn't really encourage owners to be like, oh, we want him the next day, because obviously you get off and the last thing they see of you is kind of negativity. That doesn't help. Do you manage that a lot when you come off? And obviously we've seen that you can at times feel a bit like raw and emotional about a loss, but can you kind of shelter that and cover that when you come into an owner and give them positivity, or do you just let it all out?
No, I'd be. I always try and think to why the horses went bad, or
Mm.
why. I'd always give myself about maybe 2 or 3 minutes when I pull up, just have a little bit of a think of what I personally thought And I'd hold my hands up if I gave it a bad ride. I'd never beat around the bush, but I wouldn't ever let getting beat or something like that bring myself down, because I feel like when you're riding, you're doing a job, aren't you? So I would never let that emotion get to me. Like if a horse finishes second, then it's like great. Even though it's got beaten, you would have loved to have won. I always think it's really positive because the horses run well.
I think it's important, I think, for jockeys these days to be aware of like social media and how much we need to put out there, and especially the behind the scenes stuff for people who want to know about it, as other sports have done and have done really effectively. But I've also seen that you've taken up a bit more of a role in sort of fashion and stuff like that. So you did the Chelsea Flower Show, and you've got sort of Guinea London as well. Tell me how that feels doing the fashion stuff, because I've seen like Harry Cobden doing Tatler, which is quite unusual for a jump jockey, and it seems like it's becoming a bit more of a thing. Do you think that that's important for jockeys to get into that side of stuff and to put that out there as well?
I think it's great. I mean, I've had obviously I'll do a bit of work for Guinea London, Holland Cooper, and some other stuff as well. And I think it's really good because I think it shows. I know we're not like walking on there. I suppose it probably back in the day, social media for jockeys, and if somebody put a picture of them up wearing like I don't know, a tweed suit or a tweed jacket or a nice fancy jacket, it would always been like, oh my God, what the hell? Like, but now everything's changing, and like some people may say my Instagram, I'm a complete dose because I've put pictures of ducks, chickens, and but people love it. Like I get so many like really nice replies from people that enjoy racing and follow my career and stuff like that. And the girls in racing, I've seen a lot of them have brought the Guinea London jackets, and obviously the Holland Cooper range, the equestrian range that I wear and stuff like that. I think it's nice, and also what is really good is it builds your following as well. So that would help you out later life if you wanted to do something, like I said, a business idea.
And how do you feel in terms of like the photo shoots and stuff? Because you said you're like quite natural in front of a camera. Did the photo shoots and that sort of fashion shoot type thing, did that come quite naturally to you as well, or was that a little bit daunting when you started?
Yeah, well, Louis really loves photography, so we'd always be out with a camera. God, if it was like we could be anywhere, walking the dogs and just doing some shots, or like just natural shots, like it's art. So we would do those sort of things. And I think that I see my friends that are outside of racing, and I look at what they post on Instagram, and I think to myself, yes, okay, I'm a professional sportswoman and my job is being a jockey, but why shouldn't I be able to post a picture of me? I don't know, it's artwork, that sort of stuff that I do with Louis. Or why can't I post a picture of me, on holiday in a bikini? Like, why can't I? But it's always been frowned upon, and I think it's just a bit of a stigma about it. But what is great now is I feel as though everyone is not caring about that and just go for it. Like, why not? I mean, I've got a lot better with it now, and I post things now, and I just think, like, if you don't like me, just unfollow me.
And I think you're right. I think there has been a stigma for a really long time, but I think it's really important that we change that, because I think, like I said, people want to see that kind of stuff. They want to see behind the scenes. They don't want to just see pictures of winners, because like pictures of winners are great, don't get me wrong, but it does get boring. And I don't
Mm.
think like if I think if you're a fan coming into racing and you see Lily Pinchin ride a winner, you want to know more about you. You don't want to just keep seeing you on the TV winning races all the time, as great as that is. But like I always say, when I started following Formula One after Drive to Survive, I saw like Lando Norris and Max Verstappen playing Call of Duty, and I was like, I love playing Call of Duty with my mates, so I can relate to that. And I can't relate to them driving a car, but I can relate to them gaming and that sort of stuff. And then I follow it religiously now, and I think that's what racing needs. We need to show that you're not just jockeys. Obviously, that's your primary goal, but you've got all these other facets and all these other parts of your personality that need to be put out there.
But it's nice. Like, I really like Anne-Marie's music, so I was looking at her Instagram the other day, and just like it's just nice to see like normal stuff. You know, if you follow someone for or like what they're passionate for and what they're famous for, like, or just any normal person, what they do, and then you see like what they actually do behind the scenes, like in their normal day to life. I think it makes you feel a little bit more normal. I don't know if I'm putting it that way. It would be like, I don't know, like if you were to see somebody like really famous and then they go and put a picture of them stuffing their face with a burger. Brilliant, great, love that. You know, it's normality. It's what
Yeah.
happens in real life. Like Instagram is such a massive platform of everything being perfect. Like I'm a bugger for it. I'll put a filter on a photo, but I think it's so bad that nowadays you can do so many things I've never photoshopped, but you can do those sort of things. But I think, you know, to see people do normal stuff and like put videos of them, I don't know, doing whatever, it's great to see that. And
Hmm.
good for those people that do that.
I think that's the main thing. It has to be real. It has to be authentic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, we've talked about your documentary being on Amazon Prime, talked about your social media and fashion and all that sort of stuff. I think it'd be fair to assume that with your publicity, there's no shortage of suitors. So, like I do for everyone, I want to know about your love life. Has there been more suitors since the documentary came out, and you've sort of had a bit more publicity? Has that changed for you, or has your love life kind of remained the same? And tell us about it.
Love life is on a very steady path at the moment. It's good. So hopefully that would be great if that works into something. But yeah, I'd say it's really hard to find somebody to be with and for future. My sister's just got married, so that was a bit of a wake up call. But no, it's really tricky, especially with the job of being a jockey. I find you're always on the road, you're always busy, you're knackered, and you can't really. Somebody says, "Oh, do you want to go for a weekend away?" And it's like, "Oh no, I'm really sorry, but I'm actually racing." So trying to, you know, find somebody that clicks and works and can understand that is really tricky, and I'm working on it.
You're working on it.
I'm
Excellent.
working
It's good
on
to
it.
hear. Cool. Lily, this has been really fun. It's really good to talk to you. I'm hoping that very, very soon we get another documentary. And in the meantime, we're going to be watching you with a lot of interest, and hopefully you got a successful couple of months and next season ahead of you. So it's been really good.
Thank you.
Jockeys!